Question 1. The assessment process reveals that a candidate, whom you know personally, is struggling significantly with the questions and appears to be glancing at another candidate's paper. As an invigilator for the Washliyah University Labuhan Batu entrance exam, what is your immediate and most ethical course of action? Option A. Ignore the situation to avoid causing discomfort to the candidate and potentially jeopardizing their chances. Option B. Discreetly report the observed behavior to the chief invigilator or examination committee for their investigation and appropriate action. Option C. Directly provide subtle hints or answers to the struggling candidate to help them pass the exam. Option D. Privately counsel the candidate after the exam, advising them to study harder next time without reporting the current incident. The correct answer is B. Discreetly report the observed behavior to the chief invigilator or examination committee for their investigation and appropriate action. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between academic integrity and the desire to support a fellow student. The university entrance exam for Washliyah University Labuhan Batu operates under specific internal regulations and ethical guidelines that prioritize fairness, honesty, and the accurate assessment of candidates' abilities. The pressure to assist a friend, especially when they are struggling, is a common human impulse, but it directly clashes with the professional responsibility of an invigilator to uphold the integrity of the examination process. Careful judgment is required to navigate this situation without compromising ethical standards or violating university rules. The correct approach involves discreetly reporting the observed irregularity to the appropriate authority within the examination setting, such as the chief invigilator or the examination committee. This upholds the principle of fairness to all candidates by ensuring that no one gains an unfair advantage. It aligns with the ethical duty of an invigilator to maintain a secure and impartial examination environment, as mandated by the Washliyah University Labuhan Batu's examination regulations, which implicitly or explicitly require vigilance against malpractice. This approach prioritizes the integrity of the assessment process over personal relationships, which is a cornerstone of professional conduct in academic settings. An incorrect approach would be to ignore the situation. This failure constitutes a breach of professional duty and violates the trust placed in the invigilator. It undermines the credibility of the entire examination and is contrary to the spirit of fair assessment that Washliyah University Labuhan Batu strives to maintain. By not acting, the invigilator implicitly condones academic dishonesty, which can have long-term consequences for the university's reputation and the value of its degrees. Another incorrect approach would be to directly assist the struggling candidate by providing answers or hints. This is a severe ethical lapse and a direct violation of examination rules. It not only compromises the integrity of the assessment, but also constitutes academic misconduct on the part of both the invigilator and the candidate. Such an action would be grounds for disciplinary action against the invigilator and disqualification of the candidate, as it directly contravenes the principles of honest evaluation. A third incorrect approach would be to confront the candidate privately and issue a warning without reporting the incident. While this might seem like a middle ground, it still fails to address the systemic issue of potential malpractice and does not ensure a fair assessment for all. The university's regulations likely mandate reporting procedures for any suspected irregularities, and bypassing these procedures can lead to a lack of accountability and a perception that such behavior is tolerated. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the relevant university regulations and ethical codes. When faced with a dilemma, an invigilator should first identify the core ethical principles at stake, such as fairness, honesty, and integrity. They should then consider the potential consequences of each possible action, both for the individuals involved and for the institution. Consulting with a supervisor or a designated authority is often a prudent step when uncertainty exists. The ultimate goal is to act in a manner that upholds the highest professional standards and protects the integrity of the academic process. Question 2. Examination of the data shows that a research project at Washliyah University Labuhan Batu, funded by a significant external grant, has produced results that are mixed. While some findings are positive and align with the funder's expectations, a substantial portion of the data indicates outcomes that are contrary to the funder's stated objectives and may jeopardize future funding. The lead researcher is under pressure to present a report that emphasizes the positive aspects to secure continued support. Option A. Focus the report exclusively on the positive findings that align with the funder's expectations, downplaying or omitting the negative results to ensure continued funding. Option B. Transparently report all findings, both positive and negative, with a clear and objective interpretation of the data, and discuss the implications of the negative findings for future research directions. Option C. Delay the submission of the final report, stating that further analysis is required, with the intention of conducting additional experiments to try and mitigate the negative findings before reporting. Option D. Reinterpret the negative findings in a way that makes them appear less significant or more aligned with the funder's objectives, even if this requires stretching the interpretation of the data. The correct answer is B. Transparently report all findings, both positive and negative, with a clear and objective interpretation of the data, and discuss the implications of the negative findings for future research directions. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's immediate need for research funding and the ethical obligation to ensure the integrity and accuracy of research findings. The pressure to secure funding can create an environment where researchers might be tempted to overlook or downplay negative results, which is a direct violation of scientific ethics and academic integrity principles. Careful judgment is required to navigate this pressure while upholding the core values of research. The correct approach involves transparently reporting all findings, regardless of their impact on funding prospects. This aligns with the fundamental ethical principles of scientific research, which prioritize honesty, objectivity, and the dissemination of accurate knowledge. Specifically, within the context of academic research, this approach upholds the trust placed in researchers by the academic community, funding bodies, and the public. It ensures that future research builds upon a foundation of reliable data, and that decisions based on research are informed by a complete and unbiased picture. An incorrect approach that involves selectively presenting positive results while omitting negative ones constitutes scientific misconduct. This failure directly violates the ethical duty of honesty and integrity in research. It misleads other researchers, policymakers, and the public, potentially leading to flawed conclusions and detrimental decisions. Furthermore, it erodes the credibility of the researcher and the institution. Another incorrect approach, which is to delay reporting negative results in the hope of further investigation that might yield more favorable outcomes, also represents an ethical failure. While further investigation can be valuable, intentionally withholding significant negative findings for an indefinite period is a form of deception. It prevents the scientific community from benefiting from the complete dataset and can create a false impression of the research's success. This also breaches the principle of timely and open dissemination of research. A third incorrect approach, which is to subtly alter the interpretation of negative results to appear less significant, is also ethically unacceptable. This misrepresentation of data, even if not outright fabrication, undermines the objectivity of research. It is a form of bias that compromises the scientific process and can lead to the perpetuation of inaccurate information. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a commitment to ethical principles as the primary guide. Researchers should first identify the core ethical obligations at play, such as honesty, integrity, and transparency. They should then consider the potential consequences of each course of action, both for the research itself and for stakeholders. Consulting with senior colleagues, ethics committees, or institutional review boards can provide valuable guidance when faced with complex ethical dilemmas. Ultimately, the decision must prioritize the integrity of the research and the advancement of knowledge over personal or institutional gain. Question 3. Assessment of an invigilator's ethical response when a student, during the Washliyah University Labuhan Batu entrance exam, discreetly asks for help with a specific question, stating they are struggling to understand it. Option A. Politely inform the student that providing assistance with exam questions is against university regulations and that they must answer based on their own knowledge. Option B. Offer to explain the concept behind the question in a way that guides the student towards the correct answer. Option C. Discreetly whisper the correct answer to the student to help them pass the exam. Option D. Ignore the student's request and continue monitoring the room without any verbal or non-verbal acknowledgement. The correct answer is A. Politely inform the student that providing assistance with exam questions is against university regulations and that they must answer based on their own knowledge. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's immediate need for assistance and the academic integrity principles that Washliyah University, Labuhan, Batu upholds. The pressure to perform well on an entrance exam can lead students to seek shortcuts, but maintaining a fair and equitable assessment process is paramount. The university's regulatory framework and ethical guidelines for entrance exams are designed to ensure that all candidates are evaluated on their own merit, preventing any form of academic dishonesty. Careful judgment is required to uphold these standards, while also considering the university's role in fostering a supportive learning environment. The correct approach involves upholding the integrity of the examination process by refusing to provide direct answers or assistance that would compromise the fairness of the exam. This aligns with the ethical duty of an invigilator to ensure a level playing field for all candidates. Specifically, Washliyah University Labuhan Batu's entrance exam regulations likely stipulate strict rules against any form of cheating or unauthorized assistance. By adhering to these rules, the invigilator acts in accordance with the university's commitment to academic honesty and the principle of merit-based selection. Providing direct answers to the students' questions would be a direct violation of the Washliyah University Labuhan Batu entrance exam regulations concerning academic integrity. This action would undermine the validity of the examination and create an unfair advantage for the student, thereby compromising the university's commitment to a fair assessment. Offering to help the student understand the question better, without providing the answer, while seemingly helpful, could still be interpreted as providing undue assistance if it leads to the student arriving at the correct answer through guided prompting rather than independent thought. This treads a fine line and could still be seen as a breach of impartiality. Ignoring the student's request and continuing with the invigilation duties without any acknowledgement or guidance, while not actively cheating, fails to address the situation professionally. A more proactive approach that clearly communicates the boundaries of acceptable interaction during an exam is preferable. The professional decision-making process in such situations involves first recognizing the ethical and regulatory boundaries. The invigilator must prioritize the integrity of the examination above all else. When faced with a request that could compromise this integrity, the professional response is to clearly and politely decline the request, explaining that providing assistance would violate exam rules. If the student persists or the situation escalates, the invigilator should follow established university procedures for handling exam irregularities, which may involve reporting the incident. The core principle is to maintain impartiality and uphold the fairness of the assessment process. Question 4. Which approach would be most appropriate for the admissions committee of Washliyah University Labuhan Batu when reviewing an entrance exam applicant who has demonstrated strong academic potential but is facing significant personal hardship that may have affected their performance on the exam, according to the university's regulatory framework and ethical guidelines? Option A. Conduct a thorough review of the applicant's academic record and supporting documentation, considering any provisions for exceptional circumstances within the university's established admission regulations to make a fair and justified decision. Option B. Immediately grant admission based on the applicant's potential and the severity of their personal hardship, bypassing formal review. Option C. Reject the application outright due to the perceived impact of hardship on exam performance without further consideration. Option D. Postpone the decision indefinitely until the applicant's personal circumstances have fully resolved, without providing a clear timeline or process. Correct answer is B. Immediately grant admission based on the applicant's potential and the severity of their personal hardship, bypassing formal review. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's academic integrity with the personal circumstances of a student. The entrance exam process at Washliyah University Labuhan Batu is governed by specific regulations designed to ensure fairness and meritocracy. A decision made without adherence to these regulations could undermine the credibility of the admission process and potentially lead to legal or ethical repercussions for the university. The correct approach involves a thorough and impartial review of the student's application and supporting documentation against the established admission criteria, and any specific provisions for exceptional circumstances outlined in Washliyah University, Labuhan Batu's academic regulations. This approach prioritizes adherence to the university's own rules, ensuring that any decision is justifiable and transparent. It also allows for a fair assessment of the student's potential while upholding the integrity of the entrance examination. The ethical justification lies in treating all applicants equitably and making decisions based on established, objective criteria, thereby fostering trust in the university's admissions process. An incorrect approach that involves immediately granting admission based solely on the student's personal hardship, without a formal review process, fails to uphold the university's admission regulations. This bypasses the established procedures and could be perceived as favoritism, compromising the principle of equal opportunity for all applicants. Ethically, it violates the duty to be impartial and to apply rules consistently. Another incorrect approach, which is to reject the application outright without considering any mitigating factors or exploring potential accommodations, also fails to meet ethical standards. While adhering to strict rules, it neglects the university's potential responsibility to be compassionate and to consider individual circumstances within the bounds of its regulations. This approach lacks the nuanced judgment required in such situations and could lead to an unfair outcome for a deserving student. A further incorrect approach, such as delaying the decision indefinitely without clear communication or a defined process, is also professionally unacceptable. This creates uncertainty for the applicant and the admissions committee, and it suggests a lack of decisive leadership and adherence to procedural fairness. It fails to provide a timely and transparent resolution, which is crucial in any admissions process. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve 1. Understanding and clearly identifying the relevant university regulations and guidelines for admissions and handling exceptional circumstances. 2. Gathering all necessary information and documentation related to the applicant's case. 3. Conducting an objective assessment of the applicant's qualifications against the established criteria, considering any permissible exceptions or accommodations. 4. Consulting with relevant university authorities or committees if the situation falls outside standard procedures or requires interpretation of regulations. 5. Making a decision that is consistent with university policy, fair to the applicant, and upholds the integrity of the admissions process. 6. Communicating the decision and the reasoning behind it clearly and promptly to the applicant. Question 5. Implementation of an entrance examination at Washliyah University, Labuhan Batu, has led to a situation where a candidate is approached by an individual claiming to be able to provide advance answers to the exam questions for a significant fee. The candidate is under immense pressure to secure admission. What is the most ethically and regulatorily sound course of action for the candidate? Option A. Ignore the offer and hope the individual stops pursuing it. Option B. Accept the offer and pay the fee to ensure admission. Option C. Consider the offer but try to negotiate a lower fee for partial assistance. Option D. Politely but firmly refuse the offer and report the incident to the university's admissions office. The correct answer is D. Politely but firmly refuse the offer and report the incident to the university's admissions office. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic success and the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair assessment. The pressure to perform well on entrance exams can lead individuals to consider unethical shortcuts. Careful judgment is required to navigate this situation, upholding ethical principles while respecting the university's regulations. The correct approach involves prioritizing academic honesty and adhering strictly to the Washliyah University Labuhan Batu entrance exam regulations. This means refusing any offer of unauthorized assistance, even if it seems to guarantee a better outcome. This approach is ethically sound and legally compliant with the exam's framework, which implicitly or explicitly prohibits cheating and upholds the principle of merit-based admission. By rejecting the offer, the candidate demonstrates integrity, a core value expected of all university students. An incorrect approach would be to accept the offer of unauthorized assistance. This action directly violates the spirit and likely the letter of the Washliyah University Labuhan Batu entrance exam regulations concerning academic integrity. It undermines the fairness of the examination process for all other candidates who are preparing honestly. Ethically, it constitutes cheating and dishonesty, which are grounds for disqualification and can have long-term repercussions on one's academic and professional reputation. Another incorrect approach would be to remain silent and do nothing after being presented with the offer, hoping the situation resolves itself or that the offer is withdrawn. While not actively participating in cheating, this passive stance fails to uphold the ethical obligation to report or reject such propositions. It implicitly condones unethical behavior and does not actively protect the integrity of the examination process. The university's regulations would likely expect proactive adherence to ethical standards, which includes addressing unethical offers. A further incorrect approach would be to attempt to negotiate the terms of the unauthorized assistance, perhaps seeking a lesser form of help. This still involves engaging with an unethical proposition and demonstrates a willingness to compromise academic integrity. It signals a lack of commitment to honest achievement and is a direct contravention of the principles of fair assessment that underpin university entrance examinations. A professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a clear understanding of the Washliyah University Labuhan Batu entrance exam's ethical guidelines and regulations. When faced with an unethical offer, the immediate step should be to unequivocally reject it. If the offer is persistent or comes from a position of authority, the next step should be to report the incident to the appropriate university authorities, such as the examination committee or the admissions office, following established reporting procedures. This ensures that the integrity of the examination is protected and that appropriate action can be taken. Prioritizing honesty and adherence to rules, even when faced with perceived advantage, is paramount. Question 6. Risk assessment procedures indicate a potential for external influence on a candidate during the Washliyah University Labuhan Batu entrance examination. A candidate, visibly distressed, approaches the invigilator shortly before the exam begins, explaining they have a severe learning disability that significantly impacts their ability to process information under pressure, and requests permission for a family member, waiting outside. Discreetly provide prompts and clarifications during the test. What is the most appropriate course of action for the invigilator to take? Option A. Inform the candidate that, while direct assistance is not permitted, they can take extended time to complete the exam if they feel overwhelmed. Option B. Allow the family member to provide discreet prompts and clarifications to the candidate during the examination to help them manage their distress and complete the test. Option C. Suggest the candidate withdraw from the examination and reapply for a future session, promising to investigate potential accommodations for future attempts. Option D. Politely but firmly deny the request, explaining that all candidates must adhere to the examination rules without external assistance and proceed with the examination as scheduled. Correct answer is D. Politely but firmly deny the request, explaining that all candidates must adhere to the examination rules without external assistance and proceed with the examination as scheduled. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the potential conflict between a student's personal circumstances and the university's academic integrity policies. The university entrance exam at Washliyah University Labuhan Batu is designed to assess a candidate's knowledge and aptitude fairly. Introducing external assistance, even with good intentions, undermines this assessment process and creates an unfair advantage. The core ethical dilemma lies in balancing compassion for the student's situation with the obligation to uphold the integrity of the examination process and ensure a level playing field for all applicants. The correct approach involves adhering strictly to the established examination rules and regulations of Washliyah University Labuhan Batu. This means ensuring that all candidates undergo the assessment under identical conditions, free from any form of external aid. This upholds the principle of fairness and the validity of the entrance examination as a measure of individual merit. The regulatory framework for university entrance exams, as implicitly understood within the context of Washliyah University Labuhan Batu, mandates impartiality and prohibits any form of cheating or unauthorized assistance. Ethically, this aligns with the duty of care to all applicants to provide a fair and transparent assessment process. An incorrect approach would be to allow the student to receive assistance during the exam. This violates the fundamental principle of academic integrity, as it compromises the validity of the assessment. It creates an unfair advantage over other candidates who are assessed solely on their own abilities. Furthermore, it sets a dangerous precedent, potentially encouraging similar requests and eroding the credibility of the examination process. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the student's request without any consideration or alternative. While upholding rules is paramount, a complete disregard for a student's extenuating circumstances, without exploring any permissible avenues for support, if any exist within university policy for such situations, though not during the exam itself, could be seen as lacking in empathy, though the primary failure remains the compromise of exam integrity. The professional decision-making process in such situations requires a clear understanding of the university's examination policies and ethical guidelines. When faced with a request that potentially compromises these principles, the professional must first identify the core ethical conflict. The next step is to consult the relevant regulations and policies to determine the permissible course of action. In this case, the policy on examination conduct is paramount. The decision should prioritize the integrity of the assessment process, ensuring fairness for all candidates. If there are any university policies that allow for special accommodations in specific, predefined circumstances, which would typically be applied asterisk before asterisk the exam, not during, those should be explored, but never at the expense of compromising the examination's integrity itself. Question 7. During the evaluation of an applicant's academic transcript for the Washliyah University Labuhan Batu entrance exam, the admissions committee notices a significant gap in their academic record during a period when the applicant's personal statement mentions a severe family illness requiring their full-time care. The committee is aware of the university's commitment to academic merit, but also its stated value of supporting students through challenging life events. What is the most ethically sound and procedurally correct approach for the admissions committee to take? Option A. Immediately disqualify the applicant due to the unexplained gap in their academic record, as all applicants must present a continuous and unblemished academic history. Option B. Request official documentation from the applicant to verify the family illness and its impact on their academic performance, and then consider this information in the context of their overall application and the university's admission criteria. Option C. Accept the applicant without further scrutiny, assuming the personal statement adequately explains the gap and prioritizing empathy over strict adherence to academic record completeness. Option D. Ask the applicant to retake specific prerequisite courses to compensate for the period of absence, regardless of the validity of their personal circumstances. The correct answer is B. Request official documentation from the applicant to verify the family illness and its impact on their academic performance, and then consider this information in the context of their overall application and the university's admission criteria. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's personal circumstances and the university's established academic integrity policies. The admissions committee must balance empathy with the need to uphold fair and consistent evaluation standards for all applicants. Misjudging this situation could lead to either unfair advantage for one applicant or an overly rigid application of rules that ignores mitigating factors, potentially impacting the university's reputation for fairness. The correct approach involves a thorough, objective review of the applicant's academic record and supporting documentation, seeking clarification on any discrepancies or unusual circumstances without compromising the integrity of the evaluation process. This aligns with the principles of fairness and due diligence expected in university admissions. Specifically, it requires adhering to Washliyah University Labuhan Batu's stated admission criteria and ethical guidelines for evaluating applicants, which prioritize merit and adherence to academic standards while allowing for consideration of documented extenuating circumstances. The process should be transparent and based on verifiable information. An incorrect approach of overlooking the discrepancy without further investigation would violate the principle of equal opportunity and could be seen as favoritism, undermining the credibility of the admissions process. This fails to uphold the university's commitment to a fair and transparent evaluation for all candidates. Another incorrect approach of immediately disqualifying the applicant based on a single piece of potentially explainable information, without allowing for a response or further clarification, demonstrates a lack of due diligence and an inflexible application of rules. This could lead to the rejection of a deserving candidate due to circumstances beyond their control, which is contrary to ethical admissions practices that aim to identify potential rather than solely penalize past difficulties. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Identifying the core issue and potential ethical conflicts. 2. Consulting relevant university policies and ethical codes. 3. Gathering all necessary information objectively. 4. Seeking clarification from the applicant, if appropriate and permitted by policy. 5. Making a decision based on a balanced consideration of all factors, ensuring fairness and adherence to established standards. 6. Documenting the decision-making process thoroughly. Question 8. Risk assessment procedures indicate a potential for bias in the administration of the Washliyah University Labuhan Batu entrance exam due to a proctor's familial relationship with a candidate. The proctor observes their nephew struggling with a particular section of the exam and is tempted to offer subtle, non-verbal cues to guide him, believing it would not be noticed and would help him succeed. What is the most ethically sound and regulation-compliant course of action for the proctor? Option A. Discreetly offer the nephew additional time to complete the section, justifying it as a general adjustment for candidates who appear to be struggling. Option B. Privately approach the nephew after the exam to offer guidance on the topics he found difficult, framing it as general academic support. Option C. Discreetly provide subtle, non-verbal cues to the nephew to help him understand the questions, ensuring it is not overtly obvious to other candidates or supervisors. Option D. Continue to administer the exam impartially, treating the nephew exactly as all other candidates, and refrain from any form of assistance or preferential treatment. The correct answer is C. Discreetly provide subtle, non-verbal cues to the nephew to help him understand the questions, ensuring it is not overtly obvious to other candidates or supervisors. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the potential conflict between academic integrity and personal relationships, which can compromise the fairness and objectivity expected in an entrance examination process. The proctor's duty is to uphold the integrity of the examination, ensuring all candidates are assessed on their own merit. Allowing a relative to receive preferential treatment, even if subtle, violates this duty and the ethical principles of fairness and impartiality. The correct approach involves adhering strictly to the examination's established rules and regulations without exception, regardless of personal connections. This upholds the principle of equal opportunity for all candidates and maintains the credibility of Washliyah University's entrance examination. Specifically, the proctor must treat all candidates uniformly, ensuring no special assistance or leniency is provided to any individual, including relatives. This aligns with the ethical obligation to act with integrity and impartiality in professional duties. An incorrect approach would be to provide subtle hints or additional time to the relative. This constitutes a breach of professional ethics and the examination's regulations by creating an unfair advantage. Such actions undermine the principle of meritocracy and can lead to the admission of unqualified candidates, damaging the university's reputation. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the relative's struggles, assuming it is not their responsibility to assist. While direct assistance is prohibited, a proctor has a duty to ensure the examination environment is conducive to fair testing for all, which might involve addressing disruptive behavior or ensuring all candidates understand the general instructions, but not providing specific help to one individual. Failing to report observed irregularities or potential misconduct, even if involving a relative, is also an ethical failure, as it abdicates the responsibility to maintain examination integrity. Professionals in such situations should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes ethical conduct and adherence to regulations. This involves 1. Identifying the ethical conflict and relevant regulations. 2. Consulting the examination's official guidelines and university policies on conduct. 3. Prioritizing impartiality and fairness above personal relationships. 4. Taking objective and consistent action based on established rules. 5. Documenting any actions taken or observations made. Question 9. Performance analysis shows a significant number of applicants are exhibiting behaviors that suggest potential academic dishonesty during the Washliyah University Labuhan Batu entrance examination. You observe an applicant discreetly looking at notes hidden in their sleeve and then quickly returning to their exam paper. What is the most appropriate course of action? Option A. Offer the applicant a brief moment of private consultation after the exam to discuss study strategies. Option B. Ignore the behavior, assuming it is a minor lapse and not wanting to cause a scene during the exam. Option C. Approach the applicant and quietly advise them to stop looking at their notes to avoid being caught. Option D. Discreetly report the observed behavior to the examination proctor or designated university official for investigation according to university policy. Correct answer is D. Discreetly report the observed behavior to the examination proctor or designated university official for investigation according to university policy. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's perceived need for assistance and the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair assessment. The pressure to perform well on entrance exams can lead students to seek shortcuts, while the institution has a duty to uphold the validity of its evaluation process. Careful judgment is required to balance support for students with the imperative to prevent academic misconduct. The correct approach involves recognizing the student's distress and the potential for academic dishonesty, then acting in accordance with Washliyah University Labuhan Batu's established policies on academic integrity and student conduct. This means reporting the observed behavior to the appropriate university authority, such as the examination proctor or the admissions committee, without directly confronting or accusing the student. This upholds the principle of fairness to all applicants by ensuring that the examination environment remains uncompromised. The regulatory framework for university entrance exams, as implicitly understood within the context of Washliyah University Labuhan Batu, mandates a fair and impartial assessment process. Ethical guidelines for educators and administrators within such institutions require vigilance against cheating and a commitment to reporting suspected violations to the designated bodies for investigation. An incorrect approach would be to ignore the student's actions, thereby condoning potential academic dishonesty and undermining the integrity of the entrance exam for all candidates. This failure violates the university's implicit commitment to a fair evaluation. Another incorrect approach is to directly confront the student and offer assistance or advice during the exam. This not only risks disrupting the examination process for other students, but also bypasses the established procedures for handling suspected misconduct, potentially leading to an unfair outcome or an inability to properly investigate the situation. Furthermore, directly assisting the student, even with the intention of helping them succeed, constitutes a form of academic dishonesty itself and violates the principle of impartial assessment. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve 1. Observation and documentation. Discreetly note the specific behavior observed. 2. Assessment of risk. Evaluate the potential impact on the integrity of the exam. 3. Adherence to policy. Consult and follow the university's established procedures for academic misconduct. 4. Reporting. Escalate the concern to the designated authority within the university. 5. Maintaining objectivity. Avoid personal judgment or direct intervention that could compromise the investigation or fairness. Question 10. Strategic planning requires careful consideration of external funding opportunities, especially when an institution faces financial constraints. Washliyah University, Labuhan Batu, is approached by a private corporation offering a substantial donation to fund a specific research project within the Faculty of Engineering. However, the corporation's representative hints that they expect the research outcomes to align with their commercial interests, and they request a degree of influence over the research methodology and publication of results. The university's internal regulations stipulate that all external funding must be reviewed for potential conflicts of interest and adherence to academic freedom principles. What is the most ethically and regulatorily sound approach for Washliyah University Labuhan Batu to take in response to this funding offer? Option A. Propose a revised funding agreement that clearly delineates the corporation's role as a passive observer, ensures full academic freedom for researchers, and mandates transparent disclosure of the funding source and any potential conflicts of interest in all publications. Option B. Decline the funding offer outright due to the potential for compromised academic integrity and the explicit conditions attached. Option C. Delay a decision by forming a committee to study the long-term implications of accepting external funding without engaging the corporation in the interim. Option D. Accept the funding immediately to alleviate financial pressures, with a verbal understanding to address the corporation's concerns informally. The correct answer is D. Accept the funding immediately to alleviate financial pressures, with a verbal understanding to address the corporation's concerns informally. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it pits the immediate need for resources against the long-term ethical and regulatory obligations of an academic institution. The university's reputation, the integrity of its research, and the trust of its stakeholders are at stake. Navigating this requires a careful balance between financial exigency and adherence to ethical principles and university regulations. The correct approach involves transparent communication and a commitment to upholding the university's established policies and ethical guidelines. This means acknowledging the financial difficulties while actively seeking solutions that do not compromise academic integrity or violate any existing agreements or regulations. Prioritizing ethical conduct and regulatory compliance, even in difficult times, is paramount for maintaining institutional credibility and fostering a responsible academic environment. This aligns with the general principles of good governance and ethical research practices expected of any university, including Washliyah University, Labuhan, Batu, which would have its own internal regulations and ethical codes governing resource allocation and external partnerships. An incorrect approach that involves accepting the funding without full disclosure or proper vetting would be a significant ethical and regulatory failure. This could lead to conflicts of interest, compromised research objectivity, and potential violations of university policies on accepting donations or research grants. It undermines the principle of academic freedom and could expose the university to reputational damage and legal repercussions. Another incorrect approach, such as delaying the decision indefinitely or ignoring the offer, would also be professionally unsound. This demonstrates a lack of strategic planning and an inability to address financial challenges proactively. It could lead to missed opportunities for crucial funding and further exacerbate the university's financial situation, while also failing to uphold the duty of responsible stewardship of university resources. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a thorough review of university policies, ethical guidelines, and relevant regulations. It requires engaging relevant stakeholders, such as the Finance Department, Research Ethics Committee, and Legal Counsel, to assess the implications of the offer. A transparent and consultative approach, prioritizing long-term institutional integrity over short-term gains, is essential. Question 11. The evaluation methodology shows that during the Washliyah University Labuhan Batu entrance exam, an invigilator observes a candidate discreetly using a small, pre-written note concealed within their sleeve. The note appears to contain information relevant to the exam questions. What is the most ethically and procedurally sound course of action for the invigilator? Option A. Publicly confront the candidate to shame them and deter future misconduct. Option B. Allow the candidate to continue the exam after confiscating the note, without further reporting. Option C. Ignore the observation to avoid disrupting the examination and potentially causing distress to the candidate. Option D. Confiscate the note, document the incident, and report it to the examination board for further review according to university policy. The correct answer is D. Confiscate the note, document the incident, and report it to the examination board for further review according to university policy. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge rooted in the ethical obligation to maintain academic integrity and fairness during an entrance examination. The core dilemma lies in balancing the need to uphold the examination's credibility with the potential for a student to benefit from an unfair advantage. The university's regulatory framework, as implied by the context of an entrance exam, would likely emphasize principles of equal opportunity, transparency, and the prevention of academic misconduct. Careful judgment is required to address the situation without compromising these fundamental values. The correct approach involves a structured and transparent process that prioritizes fairness and adherence to established examination protocols. This approach requires the invigilator to immediately and discreetly address the observed irregularity by confiscating the unauthorized material and documenting the incident according to university policy. This upholds the principle of academic integrity by preventing the student from gaining an unfair advantage and ensures that the examination process remains fair to all other candidates. The subsequent reporting of the incident to the examination board or relevant authority allows for a formal and impartial review, ensuring that any disciplinary action is taken in accordance with university regulations and established procedures. This aligns with the ethical duty of professionals in educational settings to act with honesty and uphold the standards of their institution. An incorrect approach of ignoring the incident would be a direct violation of the ethical duty to ensure a fair examination environment. This failure to act would allow academic dishonesty to go unchecked, undermining the credibility of the Washliyah University Labuhan Batu entrance exam and potentially disadvantaging other deserving candidates. It also represents a dereliction of professional responsibility. Another incorrect approach, such as confronting the student publicly or making assumptions about their intent without proper investigation, would be unprofessional and could lead to unnecessary distress or false accusations. This bypasses the established procedures for handling such matters and could result in reputational damage to the university and the invigilator. A third incorrect approach, such as allowing the student to continue without consequence after confiscating the material, fails to address the potential impact of the irregularity on the examination results and the overall fairness of the process. It neglects the responsibility to report and ensure accountability. Professionals in this situation should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to institutional policies and ethical guidelines. This involves 1. Observation. Clearly identify and document the observed irregularity. 2. Policy review. Recall and apply relevant university regulations regarding examination conduct and academic integrity. 3. Immediate action. Take appropriate, discrete steps to mitigate the immediate impact of the irregularity, e.g., confiscation. 4. Documentation. Meticulously record all details of the incident. 5. Reporting. Formally report the incident to the designated authority for further investigation and decision-making. 6. Objectivity. Maintain impartiality throughout the process, avoiding personal judgment or bias. Question 12. Governance review demonstrates that a highly influential local figure has approached the examination committee for the Washliyah University Labuhan Batu entrance exam, requesting preferential treatment for a relative who is a candidate. The figure implies that favorable consideration would benefit the university's community relations. The committee is aware of the university's strict policies on academic integrity and fair assessment. What is the most ethically and professionally sound course of action for the examination committee? Option A. Discreetly adjust the scoring rubric to allow for a slightly more lenient interpretation of the candidate's answers, ensuring they pass without overtly changing the score. Option B. Inform the influential figure that, while direct intervention is not possible, the committee will ensure the candidate's paper is given extra scrutiny to identify any potential areas for positive consideration. Option C. Proceed with the examination as planned, but make a note to inform the influential figure of the candidate's final score, regardless of the outcome, to maintain transparency. Option D. Politely but firmly decline the request, explaining that all candidates are assessed strictly on merit according to established examination criteria and university regulations, and that any deviation would compromise academic integrity. The correct answer is D. Politely but firmly decline the request, explaining that all candidates are assessed strictly on merit according to established examination criteria and university regulations, and that any deviation would compromise academic integrity. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between maintaining academic integrity and responding to external pressures that could compromise fair assessment. The university entrance exam for Washliyah University Labuhan Batu is designed to be a merit-based evaluation. Introducing external influence or preferential treatment undermines this principle, potentially leading to unqualified students being admitted, which can negatively impact the quality of education and the reputation of the institution. Careful judgment is required to uphold ethical standards and regulatory compliance. The correct approach involves strictly adhering to the established examination protocols and the university's academic regulations. This means ensuring that all candidates are assessed solely on their performance in the exam, without any bias or external interference. This aligns with the ethical principles of fairness, impartiality, and academic integrity, which are fundamental to any educational institution's operation, and are likely enshrined in Washliyah University Labuhan Batu's internal regulations and the broader Indonesian higher education framework governing admissions. An incorrect approach of yielding to the pressure from a prominent figure to alter examination results would constitute a severe breach of academic ethics and potentially violate university regulations. This action would compromise the fairness of the selection process, devalue the achievements of deserving candidates, and erode public trust in the university. It could also lead to disciplinary action against the individual involved and the university itself. Another incorrect approach of attempting to subtly influence the grading process without outright altering scores, such as by providing subjective interpretations of answers, is also ethically problematic. While it might appear less direct, it still introduces bias and deviates from the objective assessment criteria. This undermines the transparency and reliability of the examination process. A further incorrect approach of ignoring the request and continuing with the standard process without any communication or attempt to explain the university's commitment to fair assessment could be seen as a missed opportunity to reinforce ethical boundaries. While the outcome might be correct, a proactive stance in addressing the request and explaining the principles of fair examination is a more robust way to manage such ethical dilemmas. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Recognizing the ethical conflict and potential regulatory implications. 2. Consulting relevant university policies, academic regulations, and ethical codes of conduct. 3. Prioritizing academic integrity and fairness above external pressures. 4. Communicating clearly and professionally with the requesting party, explaining the university's commitment to impartial assessment and the consequences of any deviation. 5. Documenting the interaction and the decision-making process. 6. Seeking guidance from superiors or relevant university committees if the situation is complex or involves significant pressure. Question 13. Governance review demonstrates that Washliyah University Labuhan Batu is facing significant pressure to increase enrollment numbers to meet financial projections for the upcoming academic year. A proposal is put forward to relax certain academic entry requirements for prospective students who demonstrate a strong potential for future financial contributions to the university, such as through significant alumni donations or corporate sponsorships. This approach aims to secure both student numbers and future funding. Considering the ethical principles and regulatory framework governing university admissions, what is the most appropriate course of action for the admissions committee? Option A. Strictly adhere to all established academic entry requirements for all applicants, ensuring that admission is based solely on merit and suitability for the program, and explore alternative, ethically sound strategies for financial growth. Option B. Focus primarily on meeting the enrollment targets by admitting a higher number of students who meet the minimum academic requirements, while downplaying the importance of academic rigor for those with financial potential to ensure financial stability. Option C. Implement a tiered admission system where students meeting standard academic requirements are admitted, while a separate, slightly relaxed set of academic criteria is applied to applicants with strong financial backing to boost enrollment and secure future funding. Option D. Prioritize applicants with strong financial backing by offering them conditional admission, with the understanding that their enrollment is contingent on their ability to secure sponsorships or make substantial personal contributions, even if their academic qualifications are below the standard threshold. The correct answer is A. Strictly adhere to all established academic entry requirements for all applicants, ensuring that admission is based solely on merit and suitability for the program, and explore alternative, ethically sound strategies for financial growth. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's need for financial stability with the ethical obligation to maintain academic integrity and fair admission processes. The pressure to meet enrollment targets can lead to compromised decision-making, potentially undermining the university's reputation and the value of its degrees. Careful judgment is required to navigate these competing interests without violating ethical principles or established university policies. The correct approach involves a commitment to upholding the integrity of the admission process by adhering strictly to established academic criteria and university regulations. This means ensuring that all applicants, regardless of their background or potential contribution to the university's financial goals, are evaluated solely on their academic merit and suitability for the program. This aligns with the ethical principles of fairness, transparency, and accountability, which are fundamental to any educational institution. Specifically, it upholds the university's commitment to admitting qualified students and maintaining academic standards, as likely stipulated in Washliyah University Labuhan Batu's internal regulations, and general principles of higher education governance. An incorrect approach that prioritizes meeting enrollment targets by overlooking academic deficiencies or offering preferential treatment based on financial contributions would represent a significant ethical failure. This would violate the principle of meritocracy, which is central to academic admissions. It would also contravene university policies designed to ensure fair and equitable admission, potentially leading to legal challenges or reputational damage. Furthermore, admitting students who do not meet the required academic standards can negatively impact the learning environment for other students and dilute the overall quality of education provided by the university. Another incorrect approach, such as creating a separate, less rigorous admission track for students who can contribute financially, would also be ethically problematic. This creates a two-tiered system that undermines the principle of equal opportunity and could be perceived as discriminatory. It also risks devaluing the degrees of students admitted through the standard, merit-based process. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the university's mission, values, and admission policies. Professionals should first identify the core ethical principles at play, such as fairness, integrity, and accountability. They should then consult relevant university regulations and guidelines to ensure their actions are compliant. If faced with conflicting pressures, such as financial targets versus admission standards, the professional should advocate for decisions that uphold ethical standards and long-term institutional integrity, even if it means challenging immediate pressures. Seeking guidance from senior leadership or an ethics committee can also be a crucial step in navigating complex dilemmas. Question 14. Governance review demonstrates that a prospective student who has shown exceptional promise in extracurricular activities related to their chosen field of study faced unforeseen personal circumstances that significantly impacted their performance on the Washliyah University Labuhan Batu entrance examination. The student's family has provided documentation supporting their claims. The admissions committee is aware of the student's potential and is considering ways to acknowledge this without compromising the integrity of the entrance exam process. What is the most ethically sound and procedurally correct approach for the admissions committee to take? Option A. The admissions committee should uphold the entrance examination results as the sole determinant for admission, while formally acknowledging the student's extenuating circumstances in their application file and offering to provide feedback on areas for improvement for future opportunities. Option B. The admissions committee should inform the student that their entrance examination score is final and that no further consideration can be given due to the circumstances. Option C. The admissions committee should create a special exception for this student, adjusting their entrance examination score to reflect their perceived potential based on extracurricular achievements. Option D. The admissions committee should offer the student a place in a preparatory program that does not require meeting the standard entrance examination threshold, effectively bypassing the regular admission process. Correct answer is A. The admissions committee should uphold the entrance examination results as the sole determinant for admission, while formally acknowledging the student's extenuating circumstances in their application file and offering to provide feedback on areas for improvement for future opportunities. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between academic integrity and the desire to support a student's potential. The university's reputation and the fairness of the admission process are at stake. A careful judgment is required to balance empathy with adherence to established procedures. The correct approach involves a transparent and documented process that prioritizes fairness and adherence to Washliyah University Labuhan Batu's admission regulations. This means acknowledging the student's circumstances, but firmly upholding the established criteria and the integrity of the entrance examination. The university's commitment to merit-based admissions, as implicitly governed by its entrance exam framework, necessitates that all candidates are evaluated against the same objective standards. Any deviation without a clear, universally applicable policy would undermine the credibility of the entire admission process and could lead to accusations of favoritism or bias. An incorrect approach would be to bypass the established admission procedures to accommodate the student. This could involve artificially inflating scores or creating a special exception without proper justification or a clear policy. Such actions would violate the principles of fairness and equal opportunity, potentially leading to legal challenges and damage to the university's reputation. Furthermore, it would set a dangerous precedent, encouraging future requests for special treatment and eroding trust in the admission system. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the student's situation entirely without any form of compassionate consideration or explanation. While upholding regulations is crucial, a complete disregard for a student's extenuating circumstances, especially if they are documented and verifiable, can be perceived as lacking in ethical consideration and may not align with the broader values of an educational institution. However, this is less severe than actively circumventing rules. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve 1. Understanding and strictly adhering to Washliyah University Labuhan Batu's admission policies and regulations. 2. Documenting all interactions and decisions thoroughly. 3. Seeking guidance from relevant university committees or authorities if ambiguity exists or if a deviation from policy is being considered, though in this case, strict adherence is paramount. 4. Communicating decisions clearly and respectfully to the student, explaining the rationale based on established university guidelines. 5. Prioritizing the integrity and fairness of the admission process above all else. Question 15. Investigation of a situation where an Washliyah University Labuhan Batu entrance exam candidate, known to the invigilator due to a prior acquaintance, expresses significant anxiety about the upcoming examination due to personal family issues impacting their preparation. The invigilator feels a strong urge to offer some form of reassurance or assistance to help the candidate perform better, but must also uphold the integrity of the entrance exam. What is the most ethically and regulatorily sound course of action for the invigilator? Option A. Provide the candidate with general encouragement and ensure they have all standard examination materials, while strictly adhering to all examination rules and not offering any specific academic assistance or preferential treatment. Option B. Offer to provide the candidate with a set of practice questions that were not part of the official study materials, claiming they are for extra practice. Option C. Discreetly inform the candidate about the general themes or areas of focus that are likely to be emphasized in the examination to help them concentrate their last-minute revision. Option D. Allow the candidate to take a slightly longer time to complete the examination than other candidates, citing their expressed anxiety as a reason. The correct answer is A. Provide the candidate with general encouragement and ensure they have all standard examination materials, while strictly adhering to all examination rules and not offering any specific academic assistance or preferential treatment. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between academic integrity and the desire to assist a student, particularly when the student is facing significant personal difficulties. The university's entrance exam regulations and ethical guidelines for academic staff are paramount. The core of the challenge lies in upholding the fairness and validity of the entrance examination process while demonstrating empathy and support within established boundaries. The correct approach involves adhering strictly to the Washliyah University Labuhan Batu entrance exam regulations regarding examination conduct and academic integrity. This means providing the student with the standard examination materials and support available to all candidates, without offering any preferential treatment or unauthorized assistance. This approach is ethically sound and legally compliant because it ensures a level playing field for all applicants, preventing any perception of bias or unfair advantage. It upholds the principle of meritocracy, which is fundamental to a fair entrance examination. The university's regulations are designed to assess each candidate's genuine abilities and knowledge, and deviating from these would undermine the integrity of the admissions process. An incorrect approach would be to provide the student with advanced notice of specific question types or topics that are likely to appear on the exam. This constitutes a breach of academic integrity and violates the principle of fairness. Such an action would give the student an unfair advantage over other candidates, compromising the validity of the entrance exam results and potentially leading to the admission of less qualified individuals. This action directly contravenes the spirit and letter of regulations designed to ensure equitable assessment. Another incorrect approach would be to offer the student additional study materials or tutoring that are not made available to all other applicants. While seemingly helpful, this action creates an unequal playing field. It provides the student with resources beyond what is permitted for all candidates, thereby distorting the assessment of their independent capabilities. This is ethically problematic as it introduces an element of favoritism and undermines the standardized nature of the entrance examination. A third incorrect approach would be to subtly guide the student towards specific answers during the examination itself, perhaps by offering hints or clarifying questions that go beyond the scope of general instructions. This is a direct violation of examination proctoring rules and academic honesty. It amounts to cheating and directly compromises the integrity of the assessment process, making the results unreliable and unfair to other candidates. The professional decision-making process in such situations requires a clear understanding and unwavering commitment to the Washliyah University Labuhan Batu entrance exam regulations and ethical codes. Professionals must prioritize fairness, integrity, and impartiality. When faced with a dilemma, the first step is to identify the relevant rules and ethical principles. Then, consider the potential consequences of each possible action on the individual, the institution, and the broader community of applicants. The decision should always align with the established regulatory framework, even if it means not providing the immediate personal assistance that might seem compassionate but is ultimately unethical and detrimental to the integrity of the process. Question 16. Governance review demonstrates that a member of the Washliyah University Labuhan Batu Admissions Committee has a distant acquaintance with a candidate applying for the upcoming entrance examination. The committee member is aware of the candidate's academic background, which is strong but not exceptionally outstanding compared to other applicants. The committee member is considering how to approach this situation to ensure fairness and uphold the university's reputation. Option A. Disclose the acquaintance to the admissions committee chair and recuse oneself from any discussion or decision-making process involving this specific candidate, ensuring full transparency and impartiality. Option B. Ensure the candidate's application is reviewed with the same objective criteria as all other applicants, without any special consideration or disclosure, as the acquaintance is distant and the candidate's academic record is not significantly superior. Option C. Advise the candidate on how to best present their application and highlight specific areas of their academic record that might be more favorably perceived by the committee, leveraging the acquaintance to provide insider information. Option D. Discreetly advocate for the candidate during committee discussions, highlighting their strengths and the acquaintance, suggesting they deserve a closer look due to potential but unproven capabilities. The correct answer is B. Ensure the candidate's application is reviewed with the same objective criteria as all other applicants, without any special consideration or disclosure, as the acquaintance is distant and the candidate's academic record is not significantly superior. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between academic integrity and the desire to support a student's potential, especially when faced with a perceived personal connection. The university entrance exam for Washliyah University Labuhan Batu operates under specific internal regulations and ethical guidelines governing admissions and academic conduct. A careful judgment is required to uphold these standards while ensuring fairness and transparency. The correct approach involves adhering strictly to the established Washliyah University Labuhan Batu admission policies and ethical codes. This means ensuring that all candidates, regardless of any personal acquaintance, are evaluated solely on their merit and performance in the entrance examination. The university's commitment to academic excellence and equitable opportunity necessitates an impartial assessment process. Any deviation from this principle, even with good intentions, could compromise the integrity of the admissions process and set a precedent for favoritism, which is ethically unsound and likely violates university regulations regarding fair admissions. An incorrect approach would be to offer preferential treatment or to subtly influence the evaluation process based on the personal acquaintance. This action would represent a failure to uphold the principle of equal opportunity and could be construed as a breach of ethical conduct by exploiting a position of influence. Such behavior undermines the trust placed in the university's admissions committee and could lead to accusations of bias, potentially damaging the university's reputation and the fairness of its selection process. It also violates the spirit of meritocracy that should underpin academic institutions. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the acquaintance, but to also fail to report it, thereby creating a potential conflict of interest that remains unaddressed. This passive approach, while not actively seeking to influence, still fails to proactively manage a situation that could be perceived as compromising impartiality. Ethical decision-making in such contexts requires transparency and proactive management of potential conflicts. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the university's admission policies and ethical guidelines. When a potential conflict of interest arises, such as a personal acquaintance applying for admission, the professional should first identify the conflict. Then, they should consult the relevant university policies and ethical codes to determine the appropriate course of action. This typically involves disclosing the acquaintance to a supervisor or the relevant admissions committee and recusing oneself from any part of the decision-making process concerning that applicant. Transparency and adherence to established procedures are paramount to maintaining professional integrity and ensuring a fair and equitable outcome. Question 17. Governance review demonstrates that the Washliyah University Labuhan Batu administration is facing increasing pressure from stakeholders to improve the university's ranking and attract more high-achieving students. A senior faculty member, responsible for overseeing the development of the upcoming entrance examination, suggests a strategy to pre-familiarize a select group of promising candidates with the general themes and difficulty level of the exam, arguing this will boost the university's overall average score and attract positive media attention. This faculty member believes this approach, while not directly giving answers, will subtly enhance the performance of these chosen students, thereby improving the university's perceived academic strength. What is the most ethically sound and professionally responsible approach for the faculty member to take in response to this suggestion? Option A. Discuss the suggestion with the senior faculty member, exploring ways to enhance the university's ranking through legitimate means such as improving teaching quality and research output, while firmly rejecting any form of exam manipulation. Option B. Politely decline the suggestion, emphasizing the importance of maintaining the integrity and fairness of the entrance examination process for all candidates, and reaffirming adherence to established examination protocols. Option C. Agree to the suggestion, but only if the pre-familiarization is limited to general study tips and does not involve any specific content from the exam. Option D. Implement the suggestion discreetly, ensuring that the pre-familiarization is subtle enough not to be easily detected, as the potential benefits to the university's reputation outweigh the minor ethical compromise. The correct answer is B. Politely decline the suggestion, emphasizing the importance of maintaining the integrity and fairness of the entrance examination process for all candidates, and reaffirming adherence to established examination protocols. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between academic integrity and the pressure to achieve institutional goals. The university's reputation and funding are directly tied to its entrance exam results, creating an environment where ethical boundaries can be tested. The core dilemma lies in balancing the responsibility to uphold fair and objective assessment with the desire to present the university favorably. Careful judgment is required to navigate this pressure without compromising the integrity of the entrance examination process. The correct approach involves prioritizing transparency and fairness in the examination process. This means ensuring that all candidates are assessed based on their own merits and that no undue influence or manipulation occurs. Adhering to established examination protocols, maintaining the confidentiality of question papers, and ensuring impartial grading are paramount. This approach aligns with the ethical principles of honesty, integrity, and fairness, which are fundamental to any educational institution. Specifically, within the context of Washliyah University Labuhan Batu's entrance exam, this would mean strictly following the established guidelines for question paper handling, administration, and evaluation, as outlined in the university's academic regulations and examination board directives. An incorrect approach that involves selectively sharing examination content with certain prospective students before the exam compromises the principle of equal opportunity. This action constitutes a breach of trust and fairness, as it provides an unfair advantage to a select group, undermining the credibility of the entire selection process. Such an action would violate the university's internal regulations concerning examination security and fairness, and potentially ethical codes that govern academic admissions. Another incorrect approach, which is to subtly alter grading criteria to favor candidates from specific backgrounds or affiliations, also represents a significant ethical failure. This practice introduces bias into the assessment, moving away from objective evaluation based on merit. It erodes the trust placed in the university's admissions process and can lead to the selection of less qualified individuals, ultimately harming the academic standards of the institution. This would contravene the university's commitment to merit-based admissions and its stated principles of impartiality. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the university's ethical code and examination regulations. When faced with pressure or conflicting interests, professionals should first identify the core ethical principles at stake. They should then consult relevant policies and guidelines to determine the appropriate course of action. If ambiguity exists or the pressure to compromise ethical standards is significant, seeking guidance from a supervisor or an ethics committee is crucial. The ultimate decision must prioritize the integrity of the process and the fairness to all candidates, even if it means resisting external pressures or challenging established practices that are not ethically sound. Question 18. When evaluating a friend's application for admission to Washliyah University, Labuhan, Batu, and you are part of the admissions committee, what is the most ethically sound and professionally responsible course of action to ensure fairness and uphold the university's standards? Option A. Advocate for the friend's admission by highlighting their positive personal qualities, even if their academic qualifications are borderline according to the stated requirements. Option B. Discreetly inquire about the friend's application status and the committee's deliberations from other members to gauge their chances and offer subtle suggestions. Option C. Decline to participate in the evaluation of the friend's application to avoid any perceived conflict of interest, even if your expertise is valuable to the committee's decision-making. Option D. Objectively assess the friend's application based solely on the established admission criteria and university guidelines, ensuring no preferential treatment is given. The correct answer is D. Objectively assess the friend's application based solely on the established admission criteria and university guidelines, ensuring no preferential treatment is given. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an individual to navigate a conflict between personal relationships and academic integrity, which are core ethical principles in any educational institution. The pressure to favor a friend, coupled with the potential for negative consequences if the friend is not admitted, creates a difficult ethical dilemma. Careful judgment is required to uphold fairness and the university's admission standards. The correct approach involves adhering strictly to the established admission criteria and processes of Washliyah University, Labuhan, Batu. This means evaluating the friend's application based solely on their academic merit, qualifications, and suitability for the program, without any undue influence or preferential treatment. This approach is ethically sound and aligns with the university's commitment to transparency, fairness, and meritocracy in its admissions. It upholds the principle of equal opportunity for all applicants and maintains the credibility of the university's selection process. An incorrect approach would be to use one's position to unduly influence the admission decision in favor of the friend, even if the friend does not fully meet the stated requirements. This constitutes a breach of ethical conduct and potentially violates university regulations regarding conflicts of interest and fair admissions practices. Such an action undermines the integrity of the admission process, creates an unfair advantage for one applicant over others, and could lead to the admission of unqualified candidates, thereby lowering academic standards. Another incorrect approach would be to disclose confidential information about the admission process or other applicants to the friend, or to solicit information about the friend's application from other faculty members outside of the official channels. This violates privacy and confidentiality rules and can be seen as an attempt to manipulate the process. It erodes trust within the academic community and can lead to accusations of impropriety. A third incorrect approach would be to avoid any involvement in the friend's application process altogether, even if it means shirking a professional responsibility to contribute to the admissions committee's work. While avoiding direct conflict, this passive approach can still be problematic if it leads to a lack of objective evaluation or if the individual's expertise is needed for a fair assessment. It fails to address the ethical obligation to perform one's duties diligently and impartially. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes ethical principles and institutional policies. This involves identifying the ethical dilemma, understanding the relevant university regulations and ethical codes, considering the potential consequences of each course of action, and choosing the option that best upholds integrity, fairness, and professional responsibility. Seeking guidance from a supervisor or the university's ethics committee can also be a crucial step when faced with complex ethical challenges. Question 19. Governance review demonstrates that candidate for Washliyah University Labuhan Batu's entrance exam, who is known to a faculty member, has performed poorly on a practice test. The faculty member, believing the candidate has significant potential despite this result, is considering subtly influencing the grading process to ensure their admission. What is the most ethically and regulatorily appropriate course of action for the faculty member? Option A. Discreetly adjust the candidate's final exam score to reflect the faculty member's belief in their potential, justifying it as a measure to identify promising students. Option B. Advocate for a re-evaluation of the candidate's practice test results, citing their perceived potential, and suggest a more lenient grading scale for this specific candidate. Option C. Discuss the candidate's practice test performance with the candidate directly and offer personalized tutoring to improve their chances, without informing the examination committee. Option D. Report the situation to the examination committee and recuse themselves from any involvement in the candidate's evaluation, ensuring strict adherence to the established grading criteria for all candidates. The correct answer is B. Advocate for a re-evaluation of the candidate's practice test results, citing their perceived potential, and suggest a more lenient grading scale for this specific candidate. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between academic integrity and the desire to support a student's potential, especially when faced with a perceived personal connection. The university entrance exam for Washliyah University, Labuhan Batu, operates under specific internal regulations and ethical guidelines that prioritize fairness, transparency, and the objective assessment of candidates. The challenge lies in navigating the pressure to deviate from these established procedures while upholding the principles of a just and equitable examination process. The correct approach involves strictly adhering to the established examination protocols and the university's academic integrity policy. This means ensuring that all candidates, including the student in question, are evaluated solely on their performance in the entrance exam, without any external influence or preferential treatment. This approach is ethically sound and regulatorily compliant because it upholds the principle of equal opportunity and fair assessment, which are foundational to any educational institution's admission process. It prevents bias and ensures that admission decisions are based on merit, thereby maintaining the credibility and reputation of Washliyah University, Labuhan Batu. An incorrect approach would be to allow the student's perceived potential or the personal connection to influence the grading or admission decision. This would constitute a breach of academic integrity and a violation of the university's examination regulations. Such an action undermines the fairness of the entire admission process, potentially disadvantaging other deserving candidates. It also sets a dangerous precedent, eroding trust in the university's commitment to objective evaluation. Furthermore, it could lead to the admission of unqualified students, which would negatively impact the academic standards and the overall quality of education at the university. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a clear understanding and strict adherence to the university's examination rules and ethical codes of conduct. When faced with a potential conflict of interest or pressure to deviate from established procedures, a professional should 1. Identify the ethical dilemma and the relevant university policies. 2. Prioritize adherence to the established rules and regulations. 3. Seek guidance from superiors or the relevant examination committee if uncertainty exists. 4. Document all actions and decisions to ensure transparency and accountability. 5. Refuse any request that compromises academic integrity or fairness. Question 20. Analysis of a situation where a prospective student, during the Washliyah University Labuhan Batu entrance exam, discreetly attempts to solicit answers from a proctor by subtly gesturing towards a question and whispering, "I'm really struggling with this one. Can you just give me a hint?" What is the most ethically sound and procedurally correct response for the proctor to adopt? Option A. Offer to explain the general concept behind the question after the exam is completed, without revealing the specific answer. Option B. Politely but firmly inform the student that providing any assistance or hints is strictly against university examination regulations, and that they must answer the question based on their own knowledge. Option C. Discreetly provide a very subtle hint that guides the student towards the correct answer without explicitly stating it. Option D. Ignore the student's request and continue with exam supervision, hoping the student will not persist. The correct answer is B. Politely but firmly inform the student that providing any assistance or hints is strictly against university examination regulations, and that they must answer the question based on their own knowledge. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's immediate need for assistance and the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair assessment. The pressure to perform well on an entrance exam, coupled with the potential for a student to exploit a perceived loophole, requires careful ethical judgment. The core of the challenge lies in upholding the principles of fairness, honesty, and the validity of the examination process, while also considering the student's situation. The correct approach involves prioritizing the integrity of the examination process and adhering to the established rules and regulations of Washliyah University. This means refusing to provide direct answers or assistance that would compromise the fairness of the exam for all candidates. The justification for this approach is rooted in the university's academic policies, which are designed to ensure that all applicants are evaluated on their own merit. Providing unauthorized assistance would violate these policies, undermine the credibility of the entrance exam, and create an unfair advantage for one candidate over others. It also sets a dangerous precedent for future academic misconduct. An incorrect approach would be to provide the student with the answers. This is ethically wrong because it constitutes academic dishonesty and directly violates the principles of fair assessment. It would also be a breach of professional conduct for anyone involved in administering or supervising the exam. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the student's request and walk away without any acknowledgement. While this avoids direct complicity, it fails to address the ethical dilemma and misses an opportunity to reinforce the importance of academic integrity. A third incorrect approach might be to offer vague hints that could be interpreted as leading the student to the correct answer, which still borders on providing unauthorized assistance and compromises the exam's fairness. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a clear understanding of the university's examination rules and ethical guidelines. When faced with a request that could compromise academic integrity, the professional should first and foremost uphold the established rules. This involves clearly and politely declining the request, explaining that providing such assistance is against university policy and would be unfair to other candidates. If the situation warrants, reporting the incident to the appropriate university authority for further investigation and action is also a crucial step in maintaining a fair and ethical academic environment.